In this topic, we are going to understand evolution of Indian society. We will begin from Vedic period to after independence. So here we will try to understand what led to this situation, how all of this happened. Alright, then let's get into it. First thing, you need to understand how evolution of society went through many phases. These phases begin with the advent of Aryans in the subcontinent, and it continued even after when the British left India in 1947. These phases or stages can be divided into different parts, and these parts are Vedic period, Buddhism and Jainism, Gupta Empire, Islamic Kingdom, British rule, and after independence. Now we will look at all these in detail. So let's begin with the Vedic period. It has been said that the Indian civilization starts with the Indus Valley civilization, whose time period was 1300 BC to 1800 BC. Due to a few unknown reasons, the civilization declined, and with the information we have about this civilization, that is based on the remains of cities found in different parts of India and Pakistan. Their language has not yet been deciphered, so we have a very little information about them. Whatever information is available is based on assumption. Around 1500 BC, there came in India Aryans, probably from Central Asia. They crossed the Hindu Kush mountains and reached at the subcontinent. It brought a significant change in Indian society. They brought their social system over here and established their dominance over the local people. It resulted in the subjugation of the locals. The social hierarchy in the society was based on occupation, and they applied the same over here. Vedic period can be divided into two parts on a new base. That's early Vedic period and later Vedic period. During these two periods, we will observe a great shift in the society which shaped it for the ages. Early Vedic period, it has said that this period started around 1500 BC and lasted till 1000 BC. This period saw the advent of four Vedas, which shaped the influenced the life of the people in a great deal. Four Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Athra Veda and Samaveda. Rig Veda is the knowledge of verses. It consists of collection of 1028 poems. Yajur Veda, it is a prose of mantras. It consists of 40 chapters. Athra Veda, it is related with the literary monument of Indian medicine like Ayurveda, etc. And Samaveda is belonging to musical verses. So these were written during this age, and their philosophy became the part and parcel of the people's life. During this period, whole of the society was divided on the basis of occupation. This division was also known as Varna system. Although it was not allowed to change one's Varna, but there was instances when people changed it when their ability. The period witnessed the advent of new literature in Sanskrit, and this language became a new method of communication between the teachers, that is Brahmanes. There existed four Varnas in society: Brahmanes, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Every Varna has a different role to play. Brahmanes used to teach and perform religious ceremonies. Kshatriyas protected the country and managed the administration of the state. Vaishyas did economic activities such as trade or agriculture, and Shudras served the upper three Varnas. During this period, the status of women was quite high, as they were allowed to take education. They had many rights, including property right. They enjoyed quite a respectable position in society. There was no sati system or polygamy in society. Main occupation of the people was agriculture, but there was an existence of many other occupations as well. During this period, there were no existence of larger kingdoms, although small kingdoms were there. But kings were not autocrat. They had to work according to Sabha and Samiti, which were organizations of common people. Let's have a look on Vedic period, later Vedic period. This period started around 1000 BC and lasted till 600 BC. It is witnessed a number of changes which led a lasting impact on Indian society. During this period, Varna system became hereditary and got converted into the caste system. As I already mentioned, that there emerged four distinct castes: Brahmanes, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Now, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas had a very little role to play in caste system. It was mainly dependent upon the superiority of Brahmanes and inferiority of lower castes. Brahmanes had many privileges, but Shudras faced many disabilities, like caste-based discrimination started in this age. This period also witnessed the emergence of political system in society. During the later Vedic period, many smaller kingdoms emerged when were called as Janapadas. But also the many larger kingdoms emerged in this age, which are called the Mahajanapadas. There were around 16 Mahajanapadas in total. The importance of Kshatriyas increased during the power of Mahajanapadas was increased. Kings started becoming autocrat as the importance of Sabha and Samiti declined. But the importance of Brahmanas continued as they guided the kings to rule their kingdoms. During this period, there came a significant change in the status of women. They enjoyed quite a high status in early Vedic age, but their status declined in this age. With the emergence of caste system, many disabilities and restrictions were imposed on them, like child marriage, polygamy, etc. started in this age, which further deteriorated their status. They were required to remain within four walls, their house, and were restricted to take education. In the absence of education, their religion-based functions were also restricted. But at the end of this age, there came a significant change in society. This period also witnessed many changes in religious life, like worship of many gods were going on, but many new gods emerged during this age. People started worshipping incarnations of Lord Vishnu, such as Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. People also worshipped Lord Shiva, goddess, and many other gods. Now further, let's know about India during the influence of Buddhism and Jainism. The period from 600 BC to 200 AD witnessed the emergence of two new religions in northern and central India, and these were Buddhism and Jainism. They both had everlasting impact on Indian society. There were many reasons of the emergence of Buddhism and Jainism, such as restrictions imposed by caste system, rigidity of caste system, animal sacrifice, etc. Consequently, the time period of 600 BC to 500 BC saw the birth of two great thinkers, Gautama Buddha, who started Buddhism, and Lord Mahavira, who started Jainism. Lord Mahavira was the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism, and Rishabhadev was the first Tirthankar. During the lifetime of Lord Mahavira, Jainism spread to the great deal. Jainism denounced caste system and caste-based inequalities, and further it supported the equalities in society. It supported the idea to live a simple but strict life, and the teachings of Jainism were given in the Angas. Buddhism was started by Gautama Buddha. He was a prince, but he left his place in search of peace. He got true enlightenment and started propagating his teachings. Consequently, many people started following him. As a result, there came many changes in Indian society, because Buddhism was not as strict as Jainism. That's why a lot of more people adopted Buddhism, teachings of Buddhism, and given in Tripitakas. Due to the simplicity of Buddhism, thousands of people adopted Buddhism. Even it received patronage of many kings such as Ashoka. He gave up everything to propagate Buddhism. He did not leave any earth and stone to spread Buddhism, not in India but in other countries as well. Consequently, simplicity started coming in society, and Hinduism also started mending its ways. The influence of caste system started declining, and many lower caste people adopted Buddhism and Jainism to run away from the clutches of caste system, but the status of women continued to be the same due to the effect of caste system. During the Gupta Empire, the period under the Gupta Empire is considered as the golden age for Indian society. The kings were predominantly Hindus, and that's why they gave liberal grants to spread Hinduism. But it does not mean that they neglected other religions. They gave grants for Buddhism and Jainism as well. Hinduism emerged as the major religion, so its popularity also spread all around. This period witnessed the development of Indian society in different fields. Many inventions were made which brought great changes in society. Under the Islamic kingdoms, this era is quite long, that is around 500 to 600 years, and can be divided further into two parts. One is Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate in India was started by Qutbuddin Aibak with slave dynasty. This period started in 1206 AD and lasted till 1526 AD. When Babur attacked India, this period witnessed great changes in Indian society because of the advent of Islam in the system. The Muslims who initially came to India to loot Indian wealth, but later on they started residing over here. They brought their culture, religion, values, etc. over here, and gradually all these became a part of Indian culture. The Muslims brought Parda system, which became a part of Hindu culture as well. Consequently, their language and other values were also accepted by the Indians. It started the Indianistan of their culture. Almost all the kings of Delhi Sultanate were Muslims, so Islam became the state religion, but many of the kings showed tolerance towards other religions. The caste system became more strict in this age. With the arrival of Islam, a fear spread that Hindus will get converted to Islam. That's why caste system made more strict rules such as endogamy and was strictly followed. More restrictions were imposed on women just to save them from the foreign invaders. Sati system, polygamy started during this age. This period lasted only for 320 years. As in 1526 AD, Baba, the first Mughal Empire, attacked India and established the Mughal Empire over here. The Mughal emperors attained great power in India from 1526 to 1757. They controlled all of what India is now, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. The empire survived in a diluted form. So another 100 years until 1858, when there was a British prisoners and Mughal empire was absorbed into the Raj. The history records that all the early Mughal rulers except Aurangzeb were great builders. This is also noticeable that India architecture during the Mughal period was greatly influenced by Persian styles, showing a uniform pattern both in structure and character. Right, this is the remarkable features of architecture were visible in the construction of bulbous domes, the slender minarets with cupolas at the four corners, large halls, massive valued gateways, and delicate ornamentation. During the Mughal Empire, development of Urdu was an official language of the empire was seen during Jahangir's region. Urdu uses an Arabic script but Persian vocabulary and Hindi grammatical structure. New trade routes to Arab and Turk lands. The development of Mughal architecture found its way into local Indian architecture, most conspicuously in the places built by Rajputs and Sikhs. A system of education that took account of people's needs and culture. Religious harmony during Mughal Empire was dreamed by Babur but best demonstrated during the reign of Akbar. Akbar abolished pilgrim tax 5063, Jizya 5064 and held religious debates at Ibadat Khana 5078 to 82, which resulted in the proclamation of his new religion, Ilahi, Dini Ilahi or universal religion, in which they incorporated the basic principles from all religions. Ruling policies during the Mughal Empire was more successful during the reign of Akbar. He established a form of delegated government in which the provincial governors were personally responsible to him for the quality of government in their territory. Akbar's government machine included many Hindus in positions of responsibility. The governors were allowed to take major part in the governing. He introduced Mansabdari system, military and civil bureaucracy, in which the Mansabs ranks were assigned to government officials and military commanders. Here they were known as Mansabdars. Their salaries were paid not in cash but through assessment of land revenue of a particular area known as Jagir. He also introduced Zabti system in which assessment of land revenue was made on the basis of measurement of land. That's the name of Tormadal, which is associated with this system, and later the Dasal system in which the average produce of different crops as well as the average price prevailing over the last 10 years were calculated and state share was fixed at the 1/3. Culture during the Mughal Empire, the evolution of Hindustani language, which was the precursor to the Hindu and Urdu. As I already told you that Mughali cousin have a greater impact on Indians, and also the Hindustani dance form, which affected by Mughal patronage. The infusion of Persian words into the vocabulary were long-lasting cultural changes. During the Mughal Empire, development was the possibly good. Political stability was a big deal in those days, considering that there was no major invasion from the west from 5026 when Babur came in and established the Mughal Empire to after 1707 when the last Mughal Aurangzeb died. That meant at least 180 years to relate to peace if you discount the war of succession, border wars and sporadic uprisings like the Jat rebellion under Aurangzeb. About 30 years after Aurangzeb died, Nadir Shah invaded and sacked Delhi, but long before that, by 1720, the empire was in the name only. Some roads were built. There was a uniform currency at the territory of the empire was so large that there was good political and trade and commerce. Akbar's reforms like the land revenue calculation schemes for outlived him. Some astronomy and alchemy progressed under Mughal patronage. Now let's know about India under the influence of British. The Britishers were instrumental in introducing Western culture, education and scientific techniques. Through those means, they gave a traditional Indian life a jolt and galvanized the life and culture of its people. Undoubtedly, the 17th century marked the zenith of Indian medieval glory. It gave way to the 18th century, which was capable of the corruption, misery and chaos, leading to political helplessness. Right from 1498 AD, when Vasco da Gama set his foot on Indian soil, the European powers entered into Indian scene one after another. Portuguese power had no comparison to the French and English. Ultimately, in the conflict between the French and English, the latter became successful and planted the victorious banner of England in India in 1757 with the victory of Robert Clive. Under the influence of the Britishers promoting religious and Reformation movements. Indian response to Western impact was first noticed in the field of religion. Of course, Christianity was not a new thing in India before the arrival of British. During rule of East India Company, the Christian missionary activities in India became widespread. As complices in Vedic religion gave way to the rise of heterodox religion, and the impact of Islam had given encouragement to the Bhakti movement. In medieval times, the advent of Western civilization caused the growth of reform movement in modern times. The first torchbearer of Indian cultural renaissance was Rajaram Mohan Rai, with the establishment or foundation of Brahmo Samaj in 1828. He began a new chapter in the Indian Reformation movement. It was synthesis of the sum of the main elements in Hinduism and Christianity. To synthesize the culture of East and West, it encouraged rationalism and social reforms. Besides a religious reformer, Rajaram Mohan Rai was also to all an ardent social reformer, staunch patriot, pioneer of modern education, and above all the father of modern Indian Renaissance. He was followed by Keshav Chandra Singh, who established the Prarthana Samaj. In the middle of the 19th century, a reaction set in. The thoughtful men began to wonder if they stayed too far from the traditions of their ancestors. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the chief apostle of new school of thought, founded Arya Samaj and gave a clarion call to all: go back to the Vedas. He advised people not to be influenced by the religions like Islam and Christianity, but to return to the pure teachings of Vedas, which lies the essence of Indian culture. The religious reaction under the surrender of Western and Christian influence was to go still further. Ramakrishna Paramhansa and his great disciple Swami Vivekananda preached the purest form of Hinduism. Vivekananda was a novel blend of East and West, and his words arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Definitely instilled nationalism into the nervous of people. Aurobindo, Vidyasagar, M.G. Rande, etc. were other social reformers in the way the Western influence was largely felt so far as the religious and social reformationist movements were concerned. Rule of law during the British influence. The political instability of India was put to an end by the establishment of an orderly centralized government by the British. It demolished the traditional personal rule and later brought about the development of rule of law. The multiplicity of government functions gave rise to an organized bureaucracy which eclipsed the self-governing village panchayats. The new concept of India introduced by the British authorities was the equality before law. This law was definitely a variance with the Hindu thought. The instance of British courts on dealing equally with the Brahman and the outcast was the first resented by the Indians and accepted into the long run. A Brahman, a Muslim, a Christian, and a member of any sect all became equal before the law. A hierarchy of judicial officers were created to impart justice to one and all. Constitutional development during British rule. In the sphere of constitution, the idea of human equality, human rights, and liberty were the gifts of British influence. It leads a nation called choked and grounded under the British hegemony, which got shooting blame on the form of liberty and in speech, action, religion, so on and so forth. Even the Indians could criticize the activities of British government. The Government Acts of 1919 and 1935 was the pointers in this direction. Reorganization of Indian civil service during British influence. The Indian civil services was carefully built up during the British rule into the powerful and efficient bureaucrat force. In the last decade of 18th century, Cornwallis set himself to purity and reorganized the administration and filled all the key posts with men from Britain. With the gradual march of time, other more specialized services were established and the Public Works Department, Indian Police Service, Indian Forest Guard, Indian Medical Service followed each other in succession. Thus, the British authorities undertook the process of converting India into the modern state. The present Indian administrative system is a legacy of British rule. Social sphere during the British influence. In the social sphere, the British impact proved to be the beneficial. The prohibition of sati, abolition of child marriage, introduction of widow remarriage, checking of infanticide, polygamy, untouchability, etc. eradicated all like old social evils from the Indian society. Further, the undermining of caste and sex distinctions. There were certain commendable measures of the British which encouraged the Indians to incorporate all the ideas while forming the constitution. Thus, many social evils had come to their logical end long before the India became independent. Thus, Catholicity was introduced to Indian society by the British authorities. Economic sphere. In the economic sphere, the British people were regarded as exploiters from the very beginning. Before the British colonialism, India had a flourishing export trade in silk, cotton, sugar, rice, etc. However, the British rule ruined the basic economic structure of India. Indian rural economy was transformed to suit the modes of industrial Britain. This altogether changed the community structure and Indian way of life. In industrial sphere, India manufacturing skills in spinning, weaving, ivory, gold and silver workers, flagery and luxury goods suffered a great setback because of the British industrial policy. Indian traditional agriculture was converted to the cultivation of cash crops like indigo and tobacco, which left stigmas of poverty on Indian peasants. Besides, the raw material from India was exported to England, what Dadabhai Nanorji rightly called as the drain of wealth. This made India poorer. The other side of the coin is also to be taken into the consideration. The inflow of Western capital, development of modern banking and communication system, the establishment of textile, jute, sugar, cement, glass and other factories led to the rapid industrialization in India, which brought modern industries into the existence. The growth of modern industry and commerce brought urbanization, further the artistic skill of Indians for elegance, balance and beauty increased, and it brought a refinement in their attitude and taste. The demand of Indian coffee and tea in European countries led to the plantation, and that legacy India still continues, which enables her to meet a great part of her economy. Modern transport and communication during the British rule, rapid industrialization brought and the modern system of transport and communication take place. During the Lord Dalhousie period, the first railway line was built and the train ran between the Bombay and Thane in 1853. Then the Calcutta Raniganj railway line was built and later on the Madras Arikot railway. Similarly, right from the time of Lord William Bentinck, the highway building activities were carried on. In 1839, the grain truck road was built that connected Delhi and Calcutta. Later on, it was connected with Lahore and Peshawar. Lord Dalhousie also galvanized the activity of postal department by introducing penny postage system in India. Further, he was instrumental in bringing the telegraph system in India. All these modern systems of transport and communication all in a sudden took India into the modern world. The impact of this modernization was largely felt on every walk of Indian life. This acted as a boomerang for the British authorities in India. Education during the British influence, the lasting impact of West on Indian culture was the introduction of English system of education in our country. In the 18th century, India was intellectually stagnant. She was untouched by a new scientific development of the West. The historic decision taken by Lord Macaulay in 1835 was the turning point in Indian history, which opened the floodgates of European thought and literature for Indian intellectuals. This broke the intellectual isolation of Indian mind and brought it into the context of Western science, literature, philosophy, history and so on. The downward filtration theory of Macaulay, Wood's Dispatch in 1854 and Hunter Commission in 1882 expanded the intellectual horizons of Indians. It eradicated the spell of mythical geography, legendary history and pseudo science from the Indian mind and acquainted them with the scientific knowledge of West. This was really a lasting impact of the West of Indian culture. Ninth is rediscovery of India's glory past during the British rule. The British helps in rediscovering the religious past, the glorious past of India is certainly memorable. The distinctive contribution of European scholars to Indian historiography was ideologically studies with the beginning when the foundation of Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784 by Sir William Jones. Then a band of British scholars were dragged into the research of Indian history and culture. Sir William Jones, by identifying Chandragupta Maurya with the Rakotas of Greek historians, established the first fixed point on the Indian chronology. James Prinsep, by his careful examination of Ashokan inscriptions, was able to decipher it. Other European scholars like V. A. Smith, MacDonald, Alphonsus, Grant F. Connell, Todd, etc. was their research on Indian history and culture. Their viewpoints were many times contradicted by Indian scholars like Mahamahapodia, H.P. Shastri, R.G. Bandakar, K.P. Jaswal, H.C. Rai Chaudhary and several others. In this way, the research was further carried on Indian history by Western and Indian scholars as well. Further, the establishment of Department of Archaeology by Lord Curzon created another milestone for opening new horizons in 1921-22. Under earth remains of a flourishing culture by the excavations of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. This changed the course of Indian history. Nationalism during the British impact, the Western impact on Indians was responsible for the arousing nationalism in them, both going through the high ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity of the French Revolution of 1789, Proletarian Revolution of Russia in 1917 and American War of Independence 1776. The Indians were surcharged with the spirit of nationalism. That nationalism, on the other hand, gave the birth of Indian National Congress, which carried on protracted struggle against the British Raj till it was evacuated from Indian soil. The fairy call of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, "Freedom is my birthright and I shall have it," inspired millions of Indians to carry on their freedom struggle against the British Raj. Art and architecture during the British Empire, the Western impact had spread into every sphere of Indian life. The same was also extended to the sphere of art and architecture. No doubt, Indian artists retained their traditional value, but they could not remain uninfluenced from the British mode of architecture designs. The British people built many forts, buildings, cathedrals, factories and bungalows. Fort William St. George, Bombay Government Office, Lahore Railway Station, Victoria Memorial in Calcutta were but a few examples of European architecture style. Later on, the Indian artists made a novel blend of Hindu, Mughal and Victorian style, which was reflected in their architectural design. Food, dress and style during the British rule. The Western impact of Indian food, dress and style was largely felt. Bread, toast, fruits, mixture, boiled eggs in tiffin. What the Europeans were consuming were followed by the educated Indians. The use of tea, coffee, dining table, baths, etc. were imitated by the Indians. Full pants, shirts, shoes, tie, etc. were used by the educated Indians too. The modern etiquettes, like the showing gestures in the form of good morning, good afternoon, good night, goodbye, see you, best of luck, tata, bye bye, etc., were the contributions of West to Indian culture. Literature during the British rule, the impact of Western literature on Indian literature was intensive. The composition of poetry was a Rigvedic practice. However, with the influence of English literature, novels, short stories, essays and modern drama, Indian writings developed. Shakespeare became an integral part of Indian study curriculum and his works were translated into the several Indian languages. Similarly, other Western literature, particularly novels, were translated into the Indian languages in the light of Western literature. Indians attempted to write and thus Indian literature was enriched by the Western impact. Growth of scientific spirit of research during the British rule. The British rule contributed a lot for the growth of scientific spirit of research in the country. The Archaeological Department of India helped a lot in adding the new dimensions of historical research in the country. The discovery of Ramanujan in the field of mathematics, contribution of S.N. Bose, C.V. Raman and Ghansha in the field of physics. P.C. Ray, J.C. Ghose and S.S. Bhatnagar in the sphere of chemical science were notable. Philosophers like S. Radhakrishna, B.N. Seal carved staple name for them in the field of philosophy. Thus the spirit of scientific research grew and developed due to the Western influence. Dance and music during the British rule. Of course, the 200 years of the British rule in India could not bring any drastic change in the dance and music of India. Certain change, however, were noted in popular music, especially in Indian cinemas. Modern musical compositions adopted Western techniques. Among Indian composer, Akbar Khan occasionally incorporated a certain amount of harmony and Western melodies into his improvisations. In due course of time, Western dance was imitated in Indian cinemas with a very limited extent. And after the independence in 1947, when India got independence, there were many problems over here, and one of the major problems was social reconstruction. The government took the cause and took many steps to change Indian society. From 1947 till today, many changes have been taking place, such as change in outlook from traditional to modern, change to modern ideas, change in traditional ways of living, thinking, etc. Consequently, the society is rapidly changing with the changing scenario of the world. Hope you find this video informative. Thanks for watching it.